Hello and thank you for watching this ag forecast for the Western U.S. I'm Andrew Pritchard, Senior Meteorologist with Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, I found this animation here. We're looking at visible water vapor here and our 500 millibar height levels, and it really shows the ridge that's been persistent across the western half of the country, bringing all this record-breaking heat to the region, giving way now to this big trough as it drops in across the central Rockies, bringing big change to portions of the west. We'll start with a look at the visible satellite as the sun comes up here on Tuesday morning again. Here is the big trough diving down across the midsection of the country. Big cold front now extending from the panhandles of Texas and Oklahoma across the Midwest, with rain and thunderstorms along and north of that. We've got smoke being picked up by the fires here across western portions of Washington and Oregon all the way down into California. That smoke actually being wrapped around ahead of the trough, and we see some of that even across parts of the southeastern United States. Now, some of the good news with this trough that's diving in here, and just about the only good news I have for the western region right now, is we're clearing out some of the smoke from central portions of the west here, if not for a day or two, with this trough taking much of it south with it. Now, of course, we're going to be talking about a critical fire danger across the region as we head through the day today, and persistent fire conditions here over the next few days. So the removal of smoke from some of these interior portions of the west is going to be short-lived. So we look at the radar picture here on Tuesday morning. Again, widespread rain and thunderstorms along and north of that frontal boundary from the central plains into the Great Lakes. And then as you head into the central Rockies, we've got our first winter storm of the year already underway, bringing 12 to 18 inches to some of the higher elevations of the Rockies here across parts of Colorado, Wyoming, and eastern Utah. So here's the 500 millibar flow across North America. Again, a big ridge across the kind of a sliver of the western U.S. up into the Gulf of Alaska, across the Pacific. Flow coming up and over the top of that ridge, diving down here across the central Rockies, rounding the bend of our big trough that's going to cut itself off here across the central U.S. Again, the main branch of the polar jet going to stay up here across the Canadian prairies into the Great Lakes. As I hit play on this, we'll pause it here Thursday morning. Now the jet has come back together. We've got our polar jet intact from the Canadian prairie into the Great Lakes. Our big trough now has cut itself off and thus is going to just spin away here without those jet stream winds steering it. Has nowhere to go over the next several days, so it'll hang out here Wednesday, Thursday, into Friday. It's not until Saturday and Sunday this thing starts to meander back into the northern plains, where it'll once again be picked up by the polar jet and lifted across the Great Lakes into the northeast as we head through the back half of the weekend. So with that being the case, with the upper level wave not making any progress, that's why the cold air mass is just going to kind of slank down the Rockies here, parking itself over the central Rockies, the southern plains here, before we start to moderate this air mass as we head deeper into the week. Now with the ridge being kind of pinched off here across parts of western Canada, across the Pacific Northwest, we are going to hold on to heat here across Washington and Idaho, getting into, Washington and Oregon, getting into northern Idaho, western portions of Montana, and then western Canada as well. Going to hold on to the heat here as we head deeper into the week. We'll talk about daily high temperatures here at the end of this video. Now the hazards map, of course, a medley of colors across the western half of the country. As you start off across the Rockies, you've got the purple and the pink there indicating freeze warnings and winter storm warnings across parts of Wyoming, eastern Utah, getting into the Rockies, Colorado, and down into New Mexico. You head further off to the west, now you've got the pink and the purple shading, where we've got red flag warnings, we've got critical fire weather advisories in that area. We've got the pink colors going here, but very different meaning behind those as you split the western half of the country in half once again. The fire weather outlook, day 1 on the left, day 2 on the right. Again, we've got critical values here across the Cascades, the northern Sierras, getting down into southern portions of California, the southern Rockies as well. Now, as we head into the day tomorrow, we've even got, I want to point out the critical values here that we have in eastern Oregon, because I want to say that may continue into the day tomorrow. I think we'll have widespread critical values as we head into the day tomorrow, with those gusty winds and extremely low humidity values continuing, but an extreme critical values here across parts of western Oregon, southwestern Washington as we head through the day today. Again, a combination of very strong winds gusting 50 to 60 miles per hour in some of our terrain favorable areas. We've got extremely low relative humidity, dry air relative humidity in the single digits at times, or at the very least the low teens, and then very hot, dry conditions that have been persistent over the last several days to the last couple of weeks that have really primed kindling in the region. So very dangerous conditions here as far as fire weather goes across the western half of the country, and that's probably, while it may not stay with the extreme critical values, I think we're going to be talking about a heightened risk for fire weather conditions deep into the coming week. Again, here's a look at the animated relative humidity values. Again, just keeping it in the single digits during the afternoon hours here, even into Thursday. We start to kind of back off a little bit as we get deeper into the week, but still keeping things very dry, very hot across western portions of the country. Now, the reason for the strong winds, we've got a very strong pressure gradient across the region. Again, with that very big area of high pressure moving in on the backside of our cold front, with a 991 millibar low across the central Rockies. Again, the very big difference between this big area of high pressure and our deep area of low pressure off to the south. That has been very strong winds, and those will continue as we head through the day today. Backing off slightly as we get into the day tomorrow as the pressure gradient begins to lessen here, with that upper level low just kind of spinning away across the central Rockies. But here's the wind gust forecast as we head through the day today. Again, very strong winds expected all the way from the Cascades down across the Four Corners region, gusting 40 to 60 miles per hour in some of our more terrain favorable areas. And then even as we head into the day tomorrow, especially across southern areas, we'll keep those winds gusting anywhere from 30 to 40 miles per hour at times. Precipitation is going to be dry across the west until you head into the Rockies here. That's where you got the winter storm ongoing over the next couple of days. We'll see the snow tapering off as we head into the day tomorrow, though, and then that precipitation threat begins to move off to the east as the upper level low finally starts to move out over the northern plains as we get into the early part of the week. So over the next several days, we'll look for cold, wintry precipitation across parts of Wyoming, Utah, and Colorado, but that is just about it as we head through the next 5 to 6 days. Here's a look at some of your snow totals from the National Weather Service. Again, highest in the higher elevations here across the central Rockies of Colorado and Wyoming, but even portions of eastern Utah picking up at least some trace amounts of snow as we head through the next couple of days. Total accumulated precipitation over the next 7 days. Again, much of the precip across the U.S. going to be following that cold front, which is going to stall out across the midsection of the country. Several days of rain and thunderstorm activity expected from the southern plains into the Midwest, parts of Iowa, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. We'll finish with a look at those high temperatures. Again, a big cold air mass dropping into the central Rockies, but we're still going to pinch that ridge up across the western U.S., so western portions of Washington, Oregon, and California, you will hold on to the heat as we head into the end of the week. Those highs in the 90s with temperatures in the 30s across central Wyoming. Here's your highs on Wednesday. Thursday, again, check out the heat across the Pacific Northwest, holding on to temperatures in the mid to upper 90s, even a 100-degree reading or two possible as we head into the day on Thursday. Friday backing off slightly, but really keeping the heat persistent across the Pacific Northwest, starting to modify and warm the environment across the central Rockies, so we'll start to kind of eat away at that very cold, anomalously cold air mass across the midsection of the country as we head deeper into the week. Probably resuming a generally warm pattern across the western half of the country as we head into the early part of next week. As the cold peaks across the region the next 2 days, here are your overnight lows, and again, this color table cuts off with that little white line where we have sub-freezing temperatures, and that is certainly possible over the next couple of days, especially across portions of Wyoming, Utah, and higher elevations of northern Arizona.